Hey, what's up, guys? So, today we'll be talking about SQL. So, SQL is a structured query language. This is basically for querying the databases. This language is widely used in industry whenever we want to um, interact the database. There can be use of SQL in wide cases, like if you want to make generate a report from the database data, or you want to insert the data into the database using your APIs, or you might be your own application which doesn't have the API layer, and you just wanted to insert the data in the database. So in that case also SQL helps us. Okay, so let's move forward. So why should we know it, and why should we learn it basically? So this is because SQL and relational database are everywhere. Whenever you are using any application, there is a chance that it is recording your um, personal data also, or maybe any data that you wanted to fetch from that application. So it needs to have that data somewhere saved. So in that case you need database, and if there's a database, then SQL is must. Again, the another point is that if you have multiple sources, yeah, there can be a case that you have one Oracle database, and you have one SQL server, and you want to maybe you have a warehouse where the data is dumped from these databases, and you want to fetch all the records from them. So then you can use you can combine data. I mean, you can get the data from these sources using the SQL structure, SQL. Then you can also modify the data uh, using this. And the last point is that there is lot of demand of SQL developer, because everywhere data is the most prevalent thing in the industry right now, and everything revolves around the data. So that is why SQL developer is a must. Now the basic operations when we are using this SQL will be like, if you want to select the data, you could just say select star from whatever the table name is. And the other things that you want to filter out, I will be covering in the next slide. So this is the basic syntax that you will be using. Like for select, it is just select star from table name. For inserting the data, you would just write insert into table name, and the column names you want to specify that are mandatory, or maybe required for you want to insert the values. So uh, you can just specify the column names, and then you say values, and you can insert and get the values inserted in the table in those for those columns, column 1 and column 2. Now this is the update statement. So this basically is used for if there is a row and you want to update any of the columns, or maybe just one column value for any row, then you can update the data using this statement. You're gonna just say update table name set, and the column name equals to whatever you want to set the value. Maybe if this is a string, you will use the this codes, or maybe if this is an integer, you don't need to write the codes. Then the fourth one is the delete operation. So delete operation is just like delete from table name. Now maybe you don't want to delete the whole data from the table, so in that case you will be using some filter which will be just like what you use in the select statement, or maybe so that is covered in the next slide. So I'm gonna show you the next slide, which is very helpful. So you just need to remember this for any select query, or maybe the insert, update, whatever things you need to do. S- um, so first of all, for the select query, if you want, you will just say select, and the columns you want to specify. In case you just want to say is in case you just in case you want to select all the columns, that you can say just select star from whatever the table name is. Then this is the way that it should be there. Like select columns from table 1, then the join could be either left, right, or inner join. Then the second table name on the basis of which you want to make the join. Then there could be multiple joins, after which you could use the where clause. So till now you're gonna select the data, so you need to know which columns you want to mention, then the table, and if you have multiple tables from which you want to fetch the data, you just mention the data set, I mean the joins that you want to make, the whole set of data from which you want to select the query. After which what you want to do is put the where clause, and you want to get the data using this condition. Then there is a group by statement. So this group by statement, what it does is, suppose you have three records, and you want to group those according to their date. So of these three records, the two records are of same date, and the third is of another date, and you want to group the data by the column date column. So in that case, the three rows will be combined into just two rows, which will be having the two dates that you will be having, and the other columns that you want to specify would be having the aggregated values of the other columns. So if that is not clear, I will show in the next slide maybe. So that is more clear afterwards. So let's move. Then there is another having statement. So there was where clause here when you are selecting data from the data set. Now when you group the data, then also you could have the filters. So for that filters, you would be having statement, and there you can put the conditions just like where you put the conditions just like the where condition. Now the last thing is the order by the columns that you want to that you are sharing here, maybe uh, the columns of the table you want to so you can order the data using that the statement. So the records that will be fetched will be ordered by this statement, and this is the whole structure, and this will be very useful. Even if you are inserting the data, you will be needing where clause, or you will be deleting the data, you will be needing the where clause. Update this, you will be using the where clause, um, or you might, while deleting the data, you might need a join of two tables. So now there we have four joins that we have: the inner join, the left join, right join, and the full outer join. So these are the joins. So in this left join, so let's first go into the inner join, because from this it will be much clear the other joins. So if you have a data on the table 1 and table 2, and you have some common data that is on the left also and the right also, then the common data will be fetched from the two tables. So in case there's a table A1, table A, and the table B, and these are combined using some ID, and there are three columns of that ID here and five columns of that ID here. So you will get all the 8 column data using those IDs that are common. So now if you move on to the left join, what it does is it will select all the data um, from the left I mean the left table, and then the common things that can be fetched from the right table can also be there for those columns which have the IDs on both the sides. So for those rows where we won't be having the IDs on the right side, and that case, all those like if there are three rows here, three columns, and there are five columns here, so for the part here which is not common, in that case the three columns will be filled and the five columns will be showing as null because that columns are not in the right table. Then there is a right join. So in this case is just like opposite of this one. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna take all the right table rows and join the data which is available in the left side. And then this is a full outer join which says bring all the data, and if there is anything that can be merged between these tables, then that will be there. So these are some types of joins that will be required, and there are sometimes that we don't need. So we need sometimes we need left join or might be right join according to the condition. Full join is rarely used. I haven't used much in this much, but yeah, we can, if you want to make a full outer join, yes, that can be possible, but mostly these three joins are mostly used. So let's try some of the queries on the database itself. So I have already set up the uh, Azure SQL Edge engine. So this is a RDS engine that can be used, and I can have the database in it. So I'm using the Docker instance, and I'm connecting it through the Azure Data Studio. So before we try to query, we should know what is the database. So I did download this AdventureWorks 2019 database, which is a sample database provided by the Microsoft itself. Uh, Now if we need to query, we should know what is the table structure for this database. So this is the whole table structure for the database AdventureWorks. Um, so it is grouped into the schemas. So if you want to know about schemas, so this is if you're coming from the programming background, so you must have heard about the packages or modules. So these schemas are just synonyms of them in the database field. So this is basically if you have a lot of tables in your system and you know that this is some of the tables are related to some particular domain, or maybe a particular can be grouped into some entity, then we can group them using the schemas. So here we have sales, purchasing, person, production, human resources, database here. And in case you don't mention any of the schemas and you just wanted to create the table itself, so what it's going to use is the default database object schema. So let's look into the one of the schema. So I'm gonna pick this production one. uh, let's look what can be used. So let's just pick the product review and the product. So this is linked. So this is one table, this is one table, and this is linked using the product id, which is here. This is a foreign key for this, foreign key of this table, which is assigned. So let's have this. Um, Select star because we want to pick all the data from it. Select star from. Then we need to specify the schema uh, and the table name. In case you don't have any schema, you could just say select star from table. So by default the uh, selection query is like this one, but as we have schema here, so we have to write this thing. Then let's just run this, and we can see there are whole lot of rows here. So these are some of the columns: product ID, name, and this all those things. And suppose I just want to have only records which are which have ID less than 100. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just say where product ID less than 100, and I'm gonna run this, and I can see that there are 4 rows here. Okay, let's say 2000, and um, so let's make some another query here. Maybe we could just suppose we want to pick all the rows which have some colors. We want to pick the products which have some colors. So you're gonna say where color is not null. So null means that it doesn't have any color specific information. So there are whole lot of rows here, and you can just say order by name, and okay, so this is ordered through by name. You can say order by name descending if you want to show the rows in the descending order by name. Let me see if any of the column can be used. Color column. So grouping means that if you have the same set of values for the row, that will be clubbed into one. For example, here there are 3 rows for this blue, and there are 5 rows for this silver, and above also there's 7 or 8. So these will be grouped into 2 rows. One will be blue and one will be silver. Same with the other values also. So this is grouped into just one. But what about the other columns? So the other columns, you need to specify what needs to be done for those columns, because if you are grouping the rows into one using this column, either you should specify uh, only the columns which are on the group by clause. So if I am using the group by clause using the color, and I am selecting all of the columns here, this will result into error, because when we combine the data we need to specify the what needs to be done for the other column. Either you would leave them all, or you would need to give some aggregate function on them. Aggregate means for suppose if this is a blue row here, these 3 rows are with the color blue. So for this column, if you want to show this column, then you need to have some aggregate function applied on it. Aggregate function, like you can just uh, sum the values, or maybe you can average out, or maybe you could uh, have some any other function applied on it. So let's try this. uh, so let's try this without any change, so it will give some error. And we can see that there is an error because it says that the product.id is invalid in the selected list, as it is not contained in the group by clause. So whatever column that you mention here should be there. So why does it say for this column? Because when you say select star, the first column is this one. So that's why the error is coming for this column only. So if I do a select query, now it should come as it is. But now what you can do is, suppose you want to count the number of rows which are uh, showing that there are items with the black color. So there are 93 columns, 93 rows with this value, 26 rows with this blue value. You can write as statement as a keyword for this to rename this, whatever you have mentioned the columns, you can rename it like color, and we'll show it here. So apart from that, maybe you want to sum up something, or maybe you want to average out the list price that I've seen this column this table has. So this is the average of list price. Now any column on which I am not having any aggregate function and that is not here will give me error. Suppose name, so it would give me error. So that's it, I believe. The next things that I'm gonna pick here would be the related to the joins. So what we have covered here is the select query using the where clause in the group by, and using the order clause, order by color. We can do that, order by color also, yeah, order by average of list price, which we have shown above. So these three keywords we have shown here using the select. Also the insert update query can also be there, but there are a lot of columns here in this table. Let's choose some table which has less number of data, less number of columns. But they are all interlinked. So this is a transaction history archive. Let's see if I would just add one of the row here. This is not linked to any of the other tables, so I won't think there would be any error. Let's try out. Transaction history archive. So let's just first of all select the data and see. So this is the type of data we have. Also, if you want to see what all columns are mandatory to fill, I'm not getting the option where we could filter that table. Yeah, so all the columns are mandatory. So I can just put four values as an int, and the fifth value will be a date field. I can just say insert into transaction, the same thing, production dot this, and select. I can just there's another way we could insert the data. Could say select and there are four fields which are integer, and the last one is a um, date field. So I'm gonna insert that thing, the number of columns that, let's see if I've missed some columns here. The four columns in the four columns, 1 2 3 4, and fifth one is the date. Let's again go to the definition. Transaction history archive. Okay, there are all other columns as well, which I have not seen. Transaction type char, and char, which is char, quantity again int, money. Okay, this is a char, so let's say n char, quantity as 1, actual cost as 1, and the modified date would be the again get date. So this would bring me the date field, and again there is some issue. Transaction type, which is n char, after the get date field, let's see what set of values it has already. So let's put s here. So yeah, one item has been inserted. कैसे करेंगे? So this is the first row that we have just inserted, and we can have a delete statement to delete this. So we can say delete from production where transaction id equals to -1, and you can see there's one row affected. Now we could also have one statement where we could just update something. So suppose if we want to update this transaction date field, and the transaction type p equals p to s. So what we gonna do is update and the table name and we're gonna say set um, the transaction date and the transaction type as is, or we can just also change the quantity by quantity. Let's go to the next column, next row. Quantity equals to quantity, next line, quantity equals to quantity into 2. So if I don't have any where clause, it will update all the rows. So I'm gonna say where clause and pick the transaction id as 1. So now if I just select the query, I can see that the transaction type has been changed, date has been changed, and the quantity is also changed to 8. So that's all for now, and I will be covering the joins in the next session. So thank you guys, keep watching the videos. I'll be bringing some more videos on SQL and GraphQL and also on the Docker, and there are a lot of videos that I am planning to make, so keep watching. Thank you.